Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, offering you daily doses of wisdom to carry into your own journey. Today's guest is Julian Bermudez, a psychedelic therapist who guides others through the tender work of reclaiming their wholeness. His approach isn't to healing isn't about protocols or diagnosis. It's rooted in presence, deep listening, and the quiet belief that we can all return to who we truly are. Let's step into Julian's world and hear the words that have illuminated his path toward authentic living. Tell us your name and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Julian Bermudez, and I help people to reconnect with themselves after pain and trauma.
Okay. What's your favorite quote?
Yeah, the first one that I think is very important is that we're not responsible for the world that shaped our minds, but we are responsible for the minds that shape the world. So it's about taking responsibility and accountability for what we create in this world.
Can you please break down that quote for us? What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean when you say we're not responsible for the world that shapes us, but we're responsible for the world we shape? That's why okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we're growing up, when our bodies are developing, when our worldview is developing, when our perceptions are developing, when our nervous system is developing, when our hormonal systems are developing, our emotional circuits are developing, our bodies develop in relationship to the environment. So if we grow up in an environment that doesn't meet our needs, or an environment that is toxic, or an environment that is abusive or negligent, that shapes the way that our minds form. So we see the world as dangerous. We see the world as being abusive or harmful, and it creates a tremendous amount of pain inside of us. And so we're not responsible for all the things that happen to us, especially as children. But as we get older, we are responsible for taking accountability for ourselves and for our emotions and for our actions, so we don't continue those same patterns of abuse or pain that shaped us early in life.
It's making sense little by little. So what you're saying is that how certain persons, they do certain things because of what happened to them while they were young, but they're not even aware of those things. But then they just do those things because, oh well, that's how it should be done. They don't even ask themselves, why am I doing this? Only for them to realize that, wait, I'm doing this because when I was young, that's what they did to me, and so that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, precisely. When we go through pain, especially when we're young and we don't have resources to go through that pain, we adapt to it in the only ways that are available to us. And so if we're growing up in an environment where we have, let's say, abusive parents, we might adapt to that environment by making ourselves very small, making ourselves very agreeable. We might try to sacrifice ourselves to please other people. So we become people pleasers.
Yeah.
And this is something that we can take responsibility for. Or we might have grown up in an environment where there were very high expectations, high evaluations, judgments, criticisms constantly. And so we could never be good enough to get our parents' unconditional acceptance or love. And so as we develop, and the way we adapt to that pain is we go out in the world and we try to be good enough. We go out in the world and we accumulate status, power, value, wealth. We get into positions where we can tell other people how to do things, or we can dictate other people's value. And this is another example of the pain from the past of not being good enough as children shows up in the present as adults. So we need to start taking responsibility and to start to cultivate accountability for this. So rather than going out in the world and accumulating power and status and wealth, we can start to accumulate inner worth. We can start to be good enough for ourselves. Instead of looking for the answers out there, we can take responsibility for ourselves.
Oh. Wow. What are some of the signs, right? Some of the signs that how do I say that? Just anchoring on the quote that we're not responsible for the things that happen to us, right? But we're responsible for how we shape the world, what we do to shape the world. What are some signs that we're not taking responsibility? We're just repeating the pattern of what happened to us. We could be the pattern of pain, pattern of abuse. we're just repeating it? What are some signs?
Yeah, there's a good many of them, and we might call them personality traits. So if I'm a people pleaser, that's one of them. If I'm addicted to something, and you can be addicted to substances, of course, but an addiction is anything that provides short-term relief but has long-term consequences, any behavior. So you can be addicted to work, you can be addicted to status, you can be addicted to relationships, you can be addicted to being valued and important through all sorts of things. You can be addicted to food. Anything that we're doing to escape from ourselves, that's a sign that we're playing out the pain from the past. If we constantly find that we're angry about everything, we're angry about the political administration, we're angry about our government, we're angry about our neighbors, these are again signs that there's pain from the past that are showing up here. So regardless of what the sign is, if we just start to turn our attention into ourselves and start to get curious about why we feel the way we feel, why we see the world the way we do, almost always it's going to come back to some early development in our childhood. And again, that was shaped by the environment that we grew up in.
I guess the next question would be, people have gone through their own fair share of whatever life has done to them. What is the first step? One who has decided to say, well, it's about time I start taking responsibility for how I shape the world, of what I do to the world, it's about time I take responsibility. What's the first step they should take? Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join. Or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah. So if we want to start taking responsibility, then we need to be able to make choices, right? We got to have some sort of agency, some ability to navigate what we're doing and to choose to do things differently. The prerequisite to make choices is awareness. We have to first become aware of why we're doing the things that we're doing. So many people just get caught up in these patterns, and they get caught up in these systems where years, decades, their entire life passes by and they just continue to follow those exact same patterns. And then at the very end, they say, wow, I spent my whole life working. Wow, I spent my whole life in pursuit of value or respect. Or wow, I spent my whole life trying to please other people to maintain my attachments. So we don't have to wait until the very end. We can start reflecting and getting curious about why we're doing the things that we do right now. And the way that we do that is we start to turn our attention not out there in the world, not to the social media or to the news or to all the things that are happening, but we start to turn our attention inward into our internal experience. If we can start to become aware of what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and what we're perceiving, and then of course, what we're doing and why we're doing that, that's where we can start to make choices and take some responsibility.
Oh, this episode is, every minute is just packed with value. Thank you, Julian.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Earlier on, when you defined it so fast, and I was like, oh, that's good. You just don't rush it. You define addiction, you're like, it's what we do for short-term relief that has long-term consequences. Because in mainstream, when people hear addiction, the first thing that they think of, well, that's not for me. Well, I don't do drugs. Well, I don't take alcohol. I'm not addicted. I don't do cocaine, heroin, or any of those things. I'm not addicted. Well, in actual sense, they are addicted to not just one, multiple things. There are people who are addicted to relationship. They're addicted to work combined. So they have like 3-4 addictions. Could you expatiate on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I would define an addiction as any behavior that provides short-term relief and has long-term consequences. So there's a craving, there's a desire to continue using whatever behavior or substance this is. And there's an inability to give it up despite those long-term consequences. So there's relapse, there's a continuing following into this pattern. When I talk to people who have any sort of addiction, and well, hold on, let me back up. So you mentioned that a lot of people say, I don't have addictions. I don't do heroin. I'm not on meth. I'm not on these hard substances. And maybe that's true. But whenever I ask somebody who says that they don't have an addiction and we lay out that definition, any behavior, short-term relief, long-term consequences, maybe it's true that they don't have addictions. But if they can reflect and inquire for a moment, almost every time they come up right away and say, yes, absolutely. I'm addicted to work. I'm addicted to the internet. I'm addicted to scrolling on my phone. I'm addicted to video games. I'm addicted to food, so on and so forth. If we get curious about that addiction and we try to figure out why it's here right now, what I want to know is, what does the addiction do for you? So if you're addicted to relationships, let's say, what does that do for you? I know what it does wrong. People tell me immediately all the things that go wrong with the addiction. But what goes so right with the addiction that despite all those consequences, this pattern maintains? And very frequently, the answers are very similar. It provides some sort of relief, some sort of escape from a pain that they're feeling that's present here. So the relationships might give them some sort of value, some sort of connection. It might transcend their isolation. It might help them with a belief of being unworthy or not good enough. It gives them some sort of precedence in being valued. So here it provides the short-term relief. So with the addiction, another quote, if we want to go into this, which is by the same person who said the first one, is that when we look at addictions, we don't want to know why the addiction. We don't ask why the addiction. We ask why the pain causing the addiction. Because the addiction is always an attempt to escape some sort of pain that's present.
So addiction is a symptom of something else, not just, addiction is not a problem. It's just a reflection of something.
Precisely. It serves a purpose. It's here for a reason. It's an adaptation to that pain. So when we have pain as a kid and we can't escape it, we can't set boundaries with it, we can't tell it to stop, we can't go away physically, there's only one option that's left, is we go away mentally. We disconnect from our emotions, we disconnect from our feelings, we disconnect from that pain. It's a wonderful survival mechanism. Anytime there's too much pain and we can't navigate it, we disconnect from it. And so this becomes the fundamental adaptation. And so when we start to disconnect originally, it becomes distractions. It becomes ways to get away from our bodies. And as those distractions lose their potency, then we look for greater and greater substances. So every single person that I've ever met, everybody who's been investigated in the research who has a chronic addiction to like a hard substance has gone through tremendous childhood pain. And this addiction was the way to navigate or to escape from that pain.
Ooh. Wow. So at that point, it's a lot of persons, they have this addiction and they're trying to deal with the addiction. And so because the underlying cause of the addiction is still there, even though they try for 1 week, 2 weeks, before you know it's the relapse, they're back in the game.
Right.
And they're back where they started from. And they're like, oh, well, what's wrong with me? I'm trying, I have this intention to do this. And it's because the thing that gives rise to the addiction is still there and it's still flourishing and still really powerful. And so if we do not deal with that stuff, it doesn't really matter how much we try with the addiction. Because now there's something that, wow, that's, I like the analysis, Julian.
Yeah, you nailed it precisely. If we don't address the pain that's underlying the addiction's purpose has not resolved itself yet. It's still needed. And so you said something really important. What's wrong with me? So when we have addictions and there's this terrible pain, we're usually very harsh to ourselves. We're our own worst critics, our own judgmenters, or making up words there. We judge ourselves, we evaluate and criticize and oftentimes punish ourselves. And if we look at where this pattern originated, we ask, where did we learn to treat ourselves this way? it almost always goes back to childhood. We learned it from somebody or something that happened. We got those messages from somewhere. And when we were treated that way, when we're being judged or when we're being evaluated or criticized or punished, when somebody says to me, Julian, what's wrong with you? You're so bad. You're so terrible. You're so stupid. Why can't you stop doing what you're doing? The result is I feel pain. I get mad. I feel sadness. I'm feeling shame. I'm scared. I might not ever be able to do this again. And so if we don't start to change the relationship that we have to ourselves, if we keep judging ourselves and evaluating and criticizing and punishing ourselves, if I'm saying, I'm so stupid, there's something wrong with me, why can't I do this? I'm continuing that same cycle of pain that caused the pain to begin with. So we have to go in and address our inner relationship. We have to start to work with that pain that we carry around and how we relate with it if we want to address things like addictions.
Oh, thank you so much for breaking it down. Earlier on, I asked you if I was to decide right now, I want to take responsibility in shaping the world around me, right? You said the first step would be that of awareness. That awareness leads to choice. That I love because, and in actual sense, it makes people are not even. It's hard to choose when you're not even aware that you have options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely.
And now, let's say I'm aware and I've made that choice. How do I, in effect, because shaping the world is an active process. It's not just I imagine I shape the world, right? How do I, in actual sense, translate my thoughts, translate my decision to reality, to action, to
the focus cannot be on shaping the world, the outer world out there. We cannot try to use our awareness and our intentions and our choice to go out and change the world. That's not how it works. Every time throughout history when people have done that, it has resulted in terrible suffering. What we need to do is focus on the inner world, our inner state of being, the pain that we carry, the way that we relate and process and express that pain, the way that we identify our emotions and express and process and comfort and soothe our emotions. We have to become very aware of the perceptions that we have, the way that we view the world around us. Because if we're viewing everybody and everything as a threat, if I'm going to view you as a threat, I won't be able to have this conversation with you. I won't be able to see you. So I have to be very clear about my own perceptions, my own emotions, and I have to start to work to comfort and soothe and relate with those. Here's a third quote for you by a different philosopher named Jideo Krishnamurti. He says, and this is actually a fairly common philosophy as well, he says that when we change ourselves as individuals, when we transform our inner world, that the outer world, society, will transform naturally and inevitably. That's how the equation works. So when we take responsibility for ourselves and we start to change our own internal landscape, the outer world changes as a natural byproduct.
Would you be kind enough to give us a story that illustrates this quote?
Sure. My ability to work with people is based off of my own relationship with my own internal state. So when we go through pain as kids, as I mentioned, the first adaptation that we have is to disconnect. So I'm no longer present with myself. So if I want to work with people in a healing capacity, the first thing that I have to be able to do is to be with them. And I can't be with somebody else if I'm not first present with myself. Because again, if I see somebody as a threat, if they're touching into their pain and they start to express this pain and I see that as a threat, I'm more occupied with my own emotional response. Or if my need to be important and to be valued is at the front of what I'm trying to achieve. So in other words, I'm working with people in a healing capacity so I can be important. I'm not with them. I can't actually see what they're going through. So before I can be present with somebody in a healing capacity and help them find healing themselves, I have to take care of myself. Because if my mind is super active when you're talking, I can't hear what you're saying. I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm just trying to meet my own needs. So first and foremost, by me tuning into myself and working with my own internal landscape and transforming all of this pain by soothing it and comforting it, it allows me to be, one, connected with myself, but two, it allows me to be present with somebody else. Me being present with somebody else while also being present with myself shows them the pathway. And it allows them to see how they can start to connect with themselves as well. So I don't do anything when I'm working with people to immediately heal them by any means. Quite the contrary. All that I do is show them that the path is inward and that the wisdom and knowledge that knows how to heal and knows how to thrive is inside of them. And so I be very present with myself, and then I try to be very present with them. And this allows somebody else to find that exact same path and to start to transform their own pain. So the byproduct of me being in tune with myself and paying attention to what I'm experiencing and transforming that allows me to help other people do the exact same thing.
Oh. Wow. This episode is oh, thank you, Julian.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's just reminds me that we when you talked about inner world and all that, a lot of persons in an attempt to say, oh, well, when I was young, I was this whatever the case might be that happened. They're like, okay, I'm going to do shape the world and what sometimes they should, just in the this is something similar to shape the world, but we know that they would basically saying the same thing. And now they're like, okay, instead of having to resolve their issues, right? Deal with their inner world. Guess what? They say, oh, if I become the CEO and the manager, the world is going to respect me or do or all that stuff. And instead of resolving the issue, they end up creating more problems in an attempt to solve the previous problem.
Precisely.
Yeah.
This is where you have, we would say, traumatized people, because what we're describing is somebody who went through a tremendous amount of pain, and so they want to go and change the world and they want to be respected. In other words, they were never valued or respected. This is the core of major pain. So you have a traumatized person who then seeks power and seeks respect and seeks status, and they get into these positions of power where they then enact their trauma onto other people. So what we have are traumatized people seeking power and status and getting into these positions where they can traumatize people on a massive scale. And this pattern just keeps going round and round and round.
Oh, thank you, Julian, for pointing this out and for being specific with the language.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Where can my listeners learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, you can go to my website. That's probably the easiest one, psychedelic-integration.net. On the website, I have interviews like what we're doing here, articles that I write, short articles about exactly what we're talking about, and other resources as well. And if you're trying to figure out how to walk this path or how to heal yourself or take accountability and responsibility for the things that you're feeling, you can also reach out through the website and get some support from me or from somebody else as well. So the website is great. We have a mailing list. You can stay up to date with what we're doing. And Instagram's fantastic as well. We'll post clips like this or videos where we talk about this, and you can also stay up to date with what we're doing as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julian. It's been an absolute delight chatting with
you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very happy that you put this information out there for people. So thank you for doing this.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.